Ladies and gentlemen, good day and welcome to Indian Railway Finance Corporation Q4 FY23 earnings conference call hosted by DAM Capital Advisors Limited. As a reminder, all participant lines will be in the listen-only mode, and there will be an opportunity for you to ask questions after the presentation concludes. If you need assistance during the conference call, please signal an operator by pressing star, then 0 on your touch-tone phone. Please note that this conference is being recorded. I now hand the conference over to Ms. Anifa Fernandez from DAM Capital Advisors Limited. Thank you, and over to you.
Thank you, Ranju. Good afternoon, everyone. A very warm welcome to Indian Railway Finance Corporation Q4 FY23 results conference call hosted by DAM Capital Advisors. On the call today, we have Ms. Shelly Verma, CMD, Additional Charge CEO and Director Finance, Mr. Sunil Kumar Goyal, GGM Finance and CFO, and Mr. P.K. Oja, GM Finance, to take us through the results, and then we will open the floor for Q&A. With that, I'll hand over the call to Ms. Shelly Verma for opening remarks. Thank you, and over to you, ma'am.
Thanks, Anifa. Good evening, everyone. I welcome you all to this conference call and would also like to thank DAM Capital for organizing this call. We had declared our audited financial results for FY23 on 25th May and have organized this call to share our performance during the year. We have already circulated our investor presentation. I'm sure you have received it by now. As you're all aware, IRFC plays a strategic role in supporting the Indian Railways infrastructure development plan and is the sole market boarding arm of Indian Railways to meet their entire extra budgetary resource requirements for CapEx funding, whether it is a rolling stock or various railway infrastructure projects. There has been a big government push for infrastructure development in the country, and in line, railway CapEx is also increasing over the years. In fact, in the Union Budget for 23-24, the railways got a very high budgetary allocation of 2.4 lakh crore, which is all-time high, as compared to 1.59 lakh crore during the previous year. And focus areas of investments are construction of new railway lines, doubling, tripling of tracks, electrification, station redevelopment, freight corridors, introduction of new next-gen trains, and setting up of Gati Shakti terminals, and all the investments which is required to meet the Indian Railway target to become net zero carbon emission network by 2030. And all this CapEx requirement of Indian Railway is funded by the budgetary support and extra budgetary resources, which include borrowing from IRFC. From financial year 21-22, budgetary support for Indian Railways has increased tremendously, and correspondingly, UBR has slightly scaled back. And if you talk about IRFC, apart from funding Indian Railways, IRFC has a mandate to finance projects which have a backward and forward linkage with railways. Accordingly, we are very actively looking at funding such projects in the entire railway ecosystem, apart from funding Indian Railways. We are currently in the process of setting up various mechanisms, creating due diligence frameworks, and also in the process of tie-up with certain agencies for lending to such projects. And we are basically exploring business opportunity as per our charter, like projects like leasing of rolling stock to entities other than Indian Railways, funding of railway infrastructure being developed through various state JVs, upcoming dedicated freight corridors, multimodal logistic parks, and renewable energy, which is required for the railway network. In fact, in our last board meeting, we had given an in-principle approval for finance lease of rolling stock to NTPC under General Purpose Wagon Investment Scheme of the Ministry of Railways. Further, we are also in the advanced stage of discussion to finalize the terms of sanction for a connectivity project of Haryana Orbital Rail Corridor, for which we had given in principle sanction in the previous year. Now we are coming to the financial highlights for FY23. Our asset under management stands at 4.67 lakh crore as on 31st March 23, as compared to 4.29 lakh crore as on 31st March 22, a growth rate of 8.63%. And if you see the breakup of this AUM, 98.73% pertains to Indian Railways, and 1.27 is for loan to RBN and IRCON. And if you see the further breakup of 98.73%, 38.8% is for rolling stock lease receivables, 13.42% for project lease receivables, and 46.44% is for advance against railway infra projects for which lease agreements are yet to be signed. The initial target of disbursement for FY23 was 66,500 crores. However, the actual disbursement in the year was less at 32,378 crores. And the last quarter, the disbursement was about 14,663 as compared to 17,537 crores in the last quarter of the previous financial year. And as you are aware, our entire financing to Indian Railways is through a finance lease model. It's a low-risk cost-plus model, as all the costs incidental to borrowing, including the hedging and the currency risk and interest rate risk, are passed through, and we are getting a very consistent margin over the years. This margin is added to our weighted average cost of funds raised during the year, which is used for working out the lease rentals. Net worth of the company has grown to around 45,470 crores as on 31st March, and our revenue has for the year has grown at a rate of 17.7% from 20,298 crores to 23,891 crores. And during FY23, we have signed lease agreements for projects funded in FY16-17 and national projects funding in 19-20 after the completion of the moratorium period. Further, we are in the process of execution of lease agreement for EBRIF funded during the year 17-18. Our profit for the financial year 22-23 is 6,337 crores and has grown at around 4% as compared to previous year. This is due to a certain low disbursement as compared to the initial target, and we have also done a one-time adjustment in our WACC in the last quarter, which has resulted in low growth in the profits and the revenues. Our total borrowing as on 31st March stands at 4.19 lakh crores, and we raised funds from diverse sources like the domestic market, ECB, tax-free bonds, 54 EC, loan from banks and financial institutions. Our board has recommended the final dividend of 0.70 per equity share for the financial year 22-23, which is subject to the approval of shareholders in the ensuing annual general meeting. This is in addition to the interim dividend which we had declared at 0.80 per equity share on 10th November. So the total dividend that we have declared for the financial year 22-23 is rupees 1.50 per share on the face value of rupees 10 each. So that is all with respect to the financials we wanted to share. Now we are open to the question and answer session. Thank you.
Thank you. We will now begin the question and answer session. Anyone who wishes to ask a question may press star and one on the touch-tone telephone. If you wish to remove yourself from the question queue, you may press star and two. Participants are requested to use handsets while asking a question. Ladies and gentlemen, we will wait for a moment while the question queue assembles. The first question comes from the line of Santosh Keshari from Keshari Wealth. Please go ahead.
Hello, thank you for taking my question. Am I audible well?
Yeah, you're audible.
Okay. Congratulations, madam, on taking charge of CMD.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I had one question regarding the disbursement. We can see that the disbursement is going down from 103,000 crore to 60,000 crore now in this year, 32,000 crore. And on the contrary, the capital planning of the Indian Railways as well as the projects are like unlike any other year. They are booming all across. So what is the reason that our disbursements are going down and we are not able to keep pace even with our past year's performance? That's my first question.
As I mentioned in my opening remarks, the budgetary support for Indian Railways is going up year after year. And this for 23-24, the budgetary gross budgetary support, GBS support is of the level of 2.4 lakh crore, all-time high. And in the previous year also, they received a very high support of about 1.59 lakh crore. So this is the reason for a lesser EBR as compared to, although the capex is going up year after year, but at the same time, budgetary support is also increasing. So that's the reason for the lesser EBR and lesser borrowing from IRFC.
So what is the plan for the next year, madam? Are you getting any guidance that it will remain at the level at which it is in FY23, or it's going to have some better growth?
See, as far as EBR is concerned, it all depends upon what kind of a capex will be planned for the next year and what support, budgetary support they will get. So, as per our understanding, this is one of the years, and we might the EBR may continue in the next year. But at the same time, it's very difficult to comment at this stage because the final numbers will depend upon the capex plan for the next year and how much of budgetary support they receive from the government. But at the same time, we are very actively looking at projects which are within our mandate of backward and forward linkage. So we are trying to create and reduce our concentration risk on business concentration risk and try to create an alternative vertical of other projects.
Yeah, madam. So even in the earlier calls, it used to be said that we are not looking at only Indian Railways as disbursement partners. We are also looking at, as you are saying just now, for backward and forward integrations, and even private players interested in railway projects will be considered for financing. So where do we stand on that? And may I ask that what is the percentage given to the private players engaged in the railway projects of the total AUM that we have now, or maybe the total disbursement that we had in FY22-23?
In FY23, our disbursement is to the Indian Railways only. See, we have been, for years, we have been funding only to Indian Railways with a leasing model. Now, for lending to other commercial projects, other projects outside the Indian Railways, we need to set up a lot of our framework, and we need to have certain strategic tie-ups, and we have to onboard certain agencies for doing the various agreements. So we have to create entire sustainable lending framework. So we have done that. We had hired an independent agency to create that lending framework for us, which is approved by the board. So we are right now in the process of setting up all this infrastructure for funding. So this alternate vertical will take some initial time for setting up, and then we will go ahead with the final sanction and disbursement process. So at the moment, we have given in principle sanction to one Haryana hospital project, and in this board meeting, as I mentioned, we have given an in principle sanction to NTPC for leasing of rolling stock. But we are in advanced discussion with various agencies. We might do some consortium funding also. So this process will take some time to structure.
Okay, thank you so much, madam. Just one last question. So what could be the total amount that is sanctioned to this Haryana project and NTPC project? If you can just...
Haryana, we have sanctioned 1,500 crores, and NTPC state, we have sanctioned 500 crores.
Okay, thank you so much, madam. Very helpful.
Thank you. Next question comes from the line of Karthik Gada from Multiple Wealth Management. Please go ahead.
Thank you for the opportunity. Am I audible?
Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
I can hear.
Couple of questions. First is, you mentioned something which impacted the profitability for the quarter. I couldn't understand it clearly. Can you please explain again?
See, actually, we calculate our lease rental based on our weighted average cost of capital plus the margin. When for one of the years, the WSCC calculation, there was some correction to be carried out. Because as you know that we have, from the last year only, we have started signing all these lease agreements and methodologies and all have been set up now. So there was certain correction to be carried out in the WSCC, which is now approved by Ministry of Railways. So because of that, there was a one-time adjustment in the WSCC, and accordingly, the
when I calculate the NIM with the numbers, it seems to be around 1.15, 1.2% just for this quarter when I annualize it. So going forward to next quarter onwards, again the NIM would be going back to 1.4, 1.5% trajectory.
Yes, it will be around same. There were certain because of this adjustment and our low cost margin, but we are likely to maintain the same trajectory.
Okay, that was first. Second, as you mentioned about the budget increasing budgetary support. So now, considering that next year there will be elections, so probably there won't be a budget initially. There will be just a presentation of the accounts. So what's the idea? I mean, next, when can we expect some clarity from the Ministry of Railways on increasing the budgetary support? Can it be done outside of the budget also, or we will have to wait for the next full budget to be presented?
Are you talking about the current financial 23-24?
Yeah, 23-24, and even for next year, because there will be elections in May 2024. So there won't be any budget presented, right, initially.
23-24, as I told you that generally whatever is the initial target during the year, also the revisions keep happening. So maybe we'll get more clarity in the second half of the financial year about the requirement from Indian Railways for the current year. But for the next year, I mean, it's too early to make any assessment about the capex, projected capex, and the budgetary support that will come from the government.
Sure. So just one request from my end. As in when or whenever there is some clarity from the government side, as you mentioned during the second half or whenever, it would be of great help for investors if it can be published on the stock exchange. That will be very useful.
Sure. If there is any further communication from Ministry, we'll definitely keep our investors on board.
Right. And my last question is, along with the results, the board also, there was a resolution for borrowing program of 50,000 crores. So can you help us to understand, our disbursements last year were 32,000 crores, and now we are proposing for borrowing program of 50,000 crores. So what is the plan, or is it just simply an enabling resolution?
This is in a way enabling resolution at the beginning of the year, but as I mentioned that we are very actively looking at projects within our charter. So based on our internal assessment of disbursement plus our debt servicing requirements, and we are also actively looking at refinancing of certain high-cost loans. So keeping all these things into consideration, we have kept this limit of 50,000 crores, which is a requirement under the company side to the borrowing for the current.
Right. And lastly, so maybe very early days, but as we move away or move out of only lending to Ministry of Railways, and when we move to private sectors, so the model, in the sense, today our credit cost assumptions will be very minimal. The OPEX is already very minimal, but these will increase. So would it be possible for you to guide us what can we expect, what kind of increases can we expect in terms of the assumptions and numbers?
First of all, as you said, this is obviously the initial days, but we are very strategically going for the diversification. We are not in a hurry to disturb the credit profile of our company as of now. We are looking for projects which in the sovereign space, and initially with the projects which are set up by the Ministry of Railways, the state JVs and the government. And over the period when we have set up all the structures are in place, then we will go for the private sector. So I don't think the kind of projects we are looking at, there will be any impact on our cost of borrowing.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you so much. These are my questions. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Next question comes from the line of Satinder Singh from Eon Infotech Limited. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity. And ma'am, congratulations and best wishes. Ma'am, what are the top 2-3 risks that you see to the business at this point in time?
Sorry, I didn't get your question.
What are the top 2-3 risks that you see to the business at this point in time?
If you analyze the current business of IRFC, there is hardly any risk because all the risks are, in our leasing model, all the risks are priced into Indian business. Whether it is
yes, ma'am. My question was more from the concerns point of view. Okay, so I understand it's a virtually risk-free business. Okay, so I meant from what are the concerns in terms of, let's say, the growth of the business? Okay.
In the growth of the business.
What are the key challenges that you see to business performing to potential?
The initial challenge is first because we have been used to only funding the Indian Railways, so we are not, as an organization, geared up for commercial lending. So we have to set up all the internal processes. We have to manpower. We have to set up all the procedures. That is the initial challenge we are facing, and we are meeting that. As I told you, we have already in our debt policy. Maybe in the initial part, we have to take help of certain agencies, like we had already signed an MOU with IFCL. So we are looking at more such collaborative arrangements which help us in that is the one challenge there. And then when we go for the project, we see that but initially we want to do the projects in which are in the like a JVs with the state sector or government companies. Gradually, once we have gained a sufficient experience this line, then we'll move out to the private sector and others. But it will all depend upon project to project. But initial part is definitely setting up all the arrangements and setting up all the structures, and which we are in the middle of doing.
Okay, fine. Then we have this 40 bips and 35 bips arrangement with the Ministry of Railways. These spreads seem to be very tight, and they virtually put a lid on the ROE. Now, we have a 14% ROE at a time when the cost of funds is fairly high, and it's not expected to go up anymore. Once the cost of funds starts coming down, then this ROE might fall further. And a ROE of 14% for NBFC will never get a very high pricing from the market, so because you're typically looking at a high teens, 17-18%, and so on and so forth. So is there any option to increase this, by working with the MOR because the ROE is 14% and looking down going forward, So any option to increase this? Are we talking to the MOR for this? Any opportunity there?
The MOR has been giving us a very consistent margin over the years, and considering that all the risks are priced in, we are passing on all the risks to them, whether it is a currency risk, interest rate, all the, like last year we have seen a huge interest rate hike. So entire interest rate hike we have passed on to this. So we did request to them, but I feel that margin are more likely to remain consistently at this level.
Okay. Conversely, ma'am, any risk of this being reduced? Because earlier, I believe it used to be 50 bips, then got reduced to 35, and then got brought up to 40. Any risk of this going down?
No, that I don't think so. That was long back, and for the last 4 years, they have been getting the same margin. So I don't see there is any risk of margins going down. But at the same time, I think they will maintain at these levels.
Right, ma'am. And ma'am, what is the weighted average tenure of the assets that we have? So, because most of our assets are long term, and I think that should be one of our qualifications, as in lender, that we got long term assets, but they don't come up in the presentation. So, what's the weighted average tenure of these assets?
It's about 8 to 9 years. We generally raise for a very long period. So, since you see the current, I think average tenure would be ranging from 8 to 9 years.
Okay, ma'am, what is the borrowing mandate for FY23-24 that you received as of this moment from the MOR?
For the current year, see, till last year, we used to get a mandate in writing from Ministry of Railways. This year, we have not received any mandate. So it will all depend upon how the capex shapes up and what is the support they get from the railway. So if there is any shortfall, they'll be taking from us, but they have not given any mandate in writing to us this year.
Okay, ma'am. And what's the average cost of borrowings that we had, ma'am, for the year ended FY23?
It was, I think last year we have set average rate of 7.5.
Sorry, ma'am?
7.52.
7.53%. Okay. Okay, ma'am. Thank you. I have a couple of other questions. I'll come back in detail. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question comes from the line of Vikas Kasturi from Focus Capital. Please go ahead.
Yeah, hello. Am I audible?
Yes, it does.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am. So, ma'am, I have 2 questions. So, my first question is, so what would be the funding that the railways would need for their national railway plan by 2030? Is there some figure like that? Because I couldn't find that.
Yes, it is. Even I think we don't have the figure readily available. We'll share with you separately.
All right, ma'am. So second question is, I'm referring to slide 4 of the presentation, and in that it says that the AUM grew by about 37,000 crores between last year and this year, that is FY22 and FY23. But when I look at the disbursement number which is below, that is only 32,000 crores. So what am I missing, ma'am? As in AUM growth is 37,000, but disbursement is only 32,000.
I'll explain that. See, actually, AM also covers the capitalization that we do for our disbursement for the projects which are yet to be, like for which the lease agreement is yet to be signed. So that capitalized amount also gets added to my AUM. These are your funding difference between and then the growth in AUM.
All right. Okay. Thank you, ma'am. That's it.
Thank you. Next question comes from the line of Bhuvnesh from Investec Capital. Please go ahead.
Thank you for the opportunity. Just a question on your presentation. In slide 5 of your presentation, so you have mentioned that the spread for FY23 is yet to be finalized by Ministry of Railways. So our understanding is that spread is finalized at the beginning of every year. So just want to understand that is there any change in methodology or procedure here?
No, actually every year it is like that. We finalize the spread at the end of the financial year along with the WACC, like cost of funds that we have raised during the year. So both WACC as well as other at the end of the financial year.
Okay, at the end of the financial year. Okay, and then how is the accounting done for that financial year? If you're realizing the spread at the end of the financial year, then how is the income accounted for that financial year?
It is at the same level. It is assumed at the same level of the previous year. That we have accordingly we account for it and then.
Okay. So you assume it to be the same. Okay. Now, in case for some reason the spread is increased or decreased for FY23, then would there be any restatement of FY23 financial?
I think that will be covered under the change in the estimate, and it will be accordingly accounted in the next financial year. Whatever change will happen due to revisioning the margin, that will be considered as a change because that is the event after ship date, and accordingly it will be accounted in the next financial year.
Okay. Got it. And sir, about the disbursement, so you have mentioned that you haven't gotten any guidance from Ministry of Railway. So in the meantime, how are you going about it? Are there any internal targets which you are working on for disbursement? What kind of disbursement for the year you are looking at?
As I mentioned, we are very actively looking at projects, but any disbursement clarity about the numbers, I think we'll be able to give you in the second half of the financial year once we have set up all, we have sanctioned, because there's a process in infrastructure projects that you sanction, then you do a documentation, disbursement, and we are in the very, very initial phase of this discussion with various project authorities and the companies. So any clarity on the disbursement we'll be able to give only in the second half.
Okay. Fine, ma'am. And just lastly, on our assets, that we see many of the engines, diesel engines are getting replaced by electric engines. So do we have any risk of obsolete assets, and how are we dealing with this scenario?
See, so far we have received certain requests for replacement assets which are in the secondary lease period. So in the secondary lease period, by that time we have already recovered all our investments. So there's a very nominal rent that we get in the secondary lease period. So even if generally they have been replacing the assets after about 15 years of this, which practically covers my primary lease period. So we don't see any major risk of shifting from diesel to loco in the total lease assets of IRFC. We have been transferring to them, but assets which are only in the secondary lease period.
Okay, got it, ma'am. Thank you for your responses, and all the best.
Thank you. Next question comes from the line of Yogesh Soya from Sugyo. Please go ahead.
हेलो.
Yes, Yogesh.
एक मिनट, आवाज आ रही है ना? हिंदी में आप बात करेंगे ना?
प्लीज बताइए.
मुझे मेरा आंसर है कि इसका ये जो जब से लिस्टिंग हुआ है तब से इसका शेयर प्राइस में कुछ बड़ी हलचल नहीं है. तो कंपनी अच्छा कर रही है, ईपीएस भी अच्छा है, डिविडेंड भी दे रही है. तो मतलब प्राइस में कुछ क्यों नहीं आ रहा? जैसे आरवीएल में 18 रुपये में दिया था और 145 तक चला गया, ठीक है. तो अभी ये 25-30 के बीच मतलब चल रहा है. तो मतलब इसमें प्राइस में कब हलचल होगा?
देखिए, अभी तो अच्छा मूवमेंट आ गया प्राइस में अक्टूबर को. अभी तो लास्ट 5 मंथ में तो अच्छा मूवमेंट है. बट अगर
26 में दिया, देखो जब गवर्नमेंट ने 26 में दिया और आरवीएल 18 में दिया, 18 वाला 5-7 गुना हो गया, लेकिन ये अभी 26 वाला शो नहीं हो रहा.
देखिए, इसमें मतलब व्हाट वी कैन से कि दिस इज शेयर प्राइस इज अ फंक्शन ऑफ वेरियस मार्केट फोर्सेस. व्हाट वी कैन से दैट वी हैव बीन
नहीं, हिंदी में बताइए, मुझे इंग्लिश तो समझ नहीं आ रही आप.
नहीं, देखिए, हम तो ये कह सकते हैं जो शेयर प्राइस है मार्केट में, उसके लिए बहुत सारे कारण होते हैं उसके बढ़ने घटने के. हम तो अपनी तरफ से, कंपनी की तरफ से तो हम ये कह सकते हैं कि हमारा जो बिजनेस मॉडल है वो एक बहुत ही सेफ और सिक्योर है. हम लोग हर साल हम 30% ऑफ अपना प्रॉफिट का डिविडेंड भी डिक्लेयर कर रहे हैं, जो कि हमारे इन्वेस्टर्स को
मतलब मैं आपको एक एग्जांपल और दे रहा हूँ. टीटागढ़ वैगन 1 साल पहले 30 रुपया था, अभी आज 350 हो गया. उससे तो बढ़िया कंपनी है ना हमारा टीटागढ़ वैगन से. तो
नहीं,
देखिए, शेयर प्राइस तो मार्केट फोर्सेस डिसाइड करती हैं. तो कंपनी मतलब कंपनी का उसमें कोई रोल नहीं रहता है. और कंपनी का रोल जो है वो बिजनेस मॉडल हमारा सेफ एंड सिक्योर्ड है, एंड वेरी रॉबस्ट बिजनेस मॉडल है. एंड हम एक कंसिस्टेंट डिविडेंड पॉलिसी फॉलो कर रहे हैं. आई थिंक जो हम कर सकते हैं वो हम. बट
कंपनी के पास अभी रिजर्व कितना पड़ा हुआ, कितना करोड़ है रिजर्व?
अभी हमारा नेटवर्क जो है वो 45,470 करोड़ है. 45,470 करोड़.
मतलब 4,500 करोड़ ना?
45,470 करोड़. 45,470 करोड़.
अच्छा, 45
470.
ओके, मतलब 4,500 करोड़ समथिंग, इतना समझो ना.
45,470 करोड़.
हाँ. ओके. हाँ. प्राइस में तो मतलब आप कह रहे हो आएगा, ऐसा बता रहे हो ना?
नहीं, हम कुछ नहीं कह रहे हैं. देखिए, करना हमारा काम नहीं है, वो मार्केट से डिसाइड होता है. हाँ, हम ये कह सकते हैं कि कंपनी अच्छा कर रही है, कंपनी का बिजनेस मॉडल सिक्योर्ड है, सेफ है, और हम कंसिस्टेंट डिविडेंड पॉलिसी फॉलो कर रहे हैं.
मतलब हाँ, वो तो सही है. कंपनी का काम रेलवे की जो कंपनी है उसको पैसा देना, और दूसरा क्या है?
दूसरा हम अदर देन एमओआर भी हम जो हमारा MOA और AAO से परमिटेड है, जो कंपनी का चार्टर है, उसमें हम बैकवर्ड फॉरवर्ड लिंकेज में भी फंडिंग कर सकते हैं, और वो हम एक्टिवली एक्सप्लोर कर रहे हैं, और कंपनी उसमें आगे करने की इच्छा रखती है।
हाँ हाँ हाँ, चलो ठीक है। आगे मतलब प्राइस में कुछ अच्छा हो तो इन्वेस्टर के लिए अच्छा है, क्योंकि 3 साल से हम लेके तो बैठे हैं, लेकिन सोच रहे हैं कि आर्गेनल में जैसा मूवमेंट आया, मतलब वो भी गवर्नमेंट कंपनी है, ये भी गवर्नमेंट है, तो मतलब इसमें भी कुछ हलचल होना चाहिए। उसका भी EPS 6-6.5 के आसपास है, इसका 5 है, तो मतलब EPS में कुछ डिफरेंस नहीं है। उससे भी ज़्यादा मेरी कंपनी का बुक वैल्यू है, उसका 31 है, मेरा 33 है।
हाँ बिल्कुल, लेकिन शेयर प्राइस मार्केट डिसाइड करती है, वो कंपनी का कंट्रोल नहीं है।
हाँ वो तो है, मेरे हिसाब से 6 महीने में उसके साथ होना आ जाना चाहिए, क्योंकि वो कंपनी और एक कंपनी में ज़्यादा डिफरेंस नहीं है, तो मेरे हिसाब से वो उसको 100 को आसपास आ जाना चाहिए। आप ठीक है, आप कह नहीं सकते हैं
हम कह नहीं सकते
प्राइस के। हाँ हाँ, चलो कोई बात नहीं, ठीक है, थैंक यू।
Thank you. Next question comes from the line of Nitin Garg from Aviva Life Insurance. Please go ahead.
Hello, ma'am. Thank you for taking my question. Ma'am, can you, subjective question it is, can you throw some light on this budgetary support, how it actually works? Because numbers are really big, but I don't see any change in this, any remarkable change in borrowing mix. I don't see any remarkable change in the book. So might be I'm missing anything. Or how does it work, ma'am? If you can throw some light, how does it? What are the nitty-gritties of this budgetary support?
You're talking about this budgetary support to railways of 2.4 lakh, 2 lakh
Yes,
40,000.
yes, ma'am. How does it comes to our company, and what all areas it affects during the year, and how will it impact the borrowing of the company?
See, this budgetary support is to Indian Railways for their various capex plans. As I told you, every year railways have to incur a lot of.
Yes. Okay.
So they either they do the EBR through IRFC, or they take the budgetary support. So for 24, the budgetary support is 2,40,000, which as per the initial estimate meets their capex plans for the year.
Okay.
But in the year, this capex plans keeps on changing, and what is the final allocation of DBS? These are all initial estimates.
Okay.
So whenever they have a requirement, they will get the budgetary support. So if there is a higher capex and there is a need for EBR, they will send a communication to IRFC for the borrowing.
Okay, that means they can either straight away from their balance sheet give to the railways, or they can give authority to the IRFC to lend it to railways. So,
IRFC comes into picture only for the EBR, not for the budgetary support.
Yeah, only for the EBR. So that is what my real question is. Do we have any plan for this financial year, or any guidance from the government that much money will be routed through EBR, through IRFC? Because we have to chalk down our numbers for IRFC for the borrowing for the current year.
So as I replied earlier also, this year we have not received any written communication from MOR about the target for the current year. So we will have to see as the year progresses what is the capex, how much capex they finally do, and how much is the support. So any shortfall in that, the EBR will come. But there is no initial target given to the company for the EBR requirement.
There is no initial target. Secondly, ma'am, your approval for 50K is for term loans and this capital market borrowing both? No?
Both. It is for both.
It is for both.
From any source.
So, ma'am, today, as we speak, currently that thing prevails, no? The lower the cost, you will go for that mode of financing.
Yes, sir. Whenever we need funds, we explore the various sources. Whichever gives us the most competitive rate, we take that borrowing.
So, ma'am, in current market scenario, I think capital markets, this bond borrowing is the lower, might be acting as a lower cost of capital, or
bond market they have been easing in the bond market. So accordingly, we'll look at whenever there's a need to raise the funds. We look at all the sources and.
Because, ma'am, FITD only one issuance have come, I think, as per my knowledge. So That is why I'm asking.
Actually, our lease rentals come in the month of April. So, and we get lease rentals in April and October. So,
Okay.
in got our lease rentals. So now, whether as and when there's a requirement, we'll be raising.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for accepting my question. Thank you. Okay.
Thank you. Next question comes from the line of Primal Mithani from Credential Investments. Please go ahead.
Ma'am, thank you, and congratulations for good numbers. Ma'am, I just wanted to know, since you're funding the state governments through JV, is the the NIM margin same for them, or they're going to likely to change there also, ma'am?
It will all depend upon the profile of the particular project. So
No, since you're diverting, ma'am, from your IR, which is central level funded, now you're going to the states and all. So are the NIMs capped at the same level?
No. Definitely the margins would be different, and we'll fix the margin looking at the risk profile of that particular project. But this model is totally different, so there our margins will definitely be higher than this.
Margins will be higher, and there will be no cap from the central side on this funding because of this, right?
Totally, the margins would be decided by our board.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question comes from the line of Nilesh Jitani from Bank of India Mutual Funds. Please go ahead.
Hi, good evening, and thanks for the opportunity. Ma'am, my first question was on the AUM breakup. So can you help me understand what's the difference between lease receivable project assets and advances against railway infrastructure assets to be leased? What's the difference between these two?
Yeah, I'll explain. In case of project assets, there's a moratorium period of 5 years during which supposing we have disbursed in this financial year. So the lease rentals will accrue after 5 years. So the next 5 years we will keep on capitalizing that amount. So that will lie as an advance to Indian Railways. Once we sign the lease agreement, it will shift to lease receivable. So the advance amount is basically the amount which we have funded in the past few years for which lease agreement is yet to be signed. And project asset lease receivable is where the lease agreement has already been signed.
Got it. So typically, if I assume a moratorium period, so wanted to understand in FY18-19, what would be sanctioned or given out which will reflect in AUM growth for FY24?
I think these advances are already part of the AUM. I think there will be no increase in the AUM because of this. Basically, it will shift from the advances to the lease receivable. In overall basis, the AUM will remain same because as of now, these assets are being reflected in our Schedule 9 of our balance as other financial assets, and they are well part of our AUM.
Okay. So largely it will be reflected in the P&L going forward as soon as the moratorium is over. Is understanding?
Yeah, in case of a P&L, I think till the time we execute the lease agreement, whatever income accrued to the IRC, that will be accounted as a pre-lease commencement interest income. And once the lease agreement is in place, after that we will account whatever revenue we receive from the MO, that will be accounted as a lease receivable in the P&L. Until the time we didn't execute the lease agreement, these will be accounted as a pre-commencement lease interest income.
Does this mean that today's interest income is depressed because that moratorium is still in place for the AUM which was disbursed 5 years back?
Yeah, but in a way, whenever we are operating under this moratorium period, we are accounting only the portion which is belongs to IRC. That is the R margin. That will get reflected in my P&L. And whatever WACC, that is my cost of borrowing, that will capitalize over this moratorium period. And once the agreements are in place and we have to receive the lease rental, so that will consist both. Whatever principal I have disbursed to the MOR and whatever margin we are receiving from that. And after execution of the lease agreement, both the portion will go to my P&L. So that way, going forward, my top line will increase. At the same time, my finance cost will also increase, but my bottom line will remain same.
Got it. So that is NII, that is net interest income will remain same, It's the interest income would be added and cost of fund would be added in the P&L. But my NII number would be same only. This does not include the volatility because of that asset coming into after moratorium into the books.
Right.
Okay, got it. The second question was on this Vande Bharat. So wanted to understand what can this through opportunity to IRFC over the next 3 years, considering a lot have been announced for Vande Bharat and most of them would be operated by Indian Railways only.
See, we have been funding Vande Bharat is like the way we have been funding the leasing of rolling stock to Indian Railways. So we have already funded certain Vande Bharat trains. So if whatever is the procurement done by Indian Railways for Vande Bharat trains, if they resort to EBR, so it will come to us. Otherwise, if we talk about the capex required for this, then we'll have to talk to the new entities who are getting the contract. If there is some business requirement, that we will explore. But as far as Indian Railways is concerned, any procurement of trains, we are already doing the financial leasing, provided they take EBR, resort to EBR, and there's any fund requirement apart from the budgetary support.
Got it. But largely now in FY24, since the extra budgetary support number is largely not present in the budget report, so I wanted to understand what kind of AUM growth base case we should assume for FY24 and 25.
Yeah, as of now, it is difficult to say, but as I have already explained you, more clarity will emerge in the second half of the financial year. Then we can inform you of growth we can expect in India. As of now, it is difficult to predict anything.
Got it. And one last question on this one-time adjustment which you mentioned in the initial comments. I wanted to understand that one-time adjustment is over and from Q1 of FY24, largely nil.
But it's already over. Like going forward, I think we'll not have the impact of this one-time adjustment.
Okay, got it. Those were my questions, and thank you so much for replying to them.
Thank you. Before we take the next question, a reminder to all the participants, please restrict yourself to 2 questions. Next question comes from the line of Satinder Singh from Eon Infotech Limited. Please go ahead.
Yeah, ma'am, thank you for the follow-up. So the government owns 86%. So as a listed company, we have to bring it down to 75%. And I don't think we have much time. So what is the update on this, ma'am?
So far, we have not received any comment on this side. I will keep you posted, but so far we have not received any communication from Deepam on this.
Okay. And ma'am, so we enjoy a tax-free status because of the lease depreciation which has accumulated with us. So what is this amount as of 31st of March? And what is the period over which this will run down in business as usual mode?
The unabsorbed depreciation as on date is about, I think, around 4,000 crores. And so based on our this thing, we don't see any tax. Basically, we have become nil tax because of the since the adoption of Section 115BAA, we are exempt from the minimum audit tax, and we have been taking reports to this, using this depreciation. So if we analyze our numbers for the next few years, we don't see any tax liability arising, as we already have this unabsorbed. And every year, as we keep on signing the lease agreement, we are getting the depreciation on the assets. So for the next few years, we don't see any tax liability arising.
Right. And you said that the weighted average tenure is about 8 to 9 years. When we look at AUM breakup, almost 50%, 46% of our assets are still advanced. So it means they are still in the moratorium. And our understanding is that after moratorium, 15 years for the borrower to pay up. So if 46% has more than 15 years still to go, then our average should be more than 8 to 9 years, no?
I think you are right. I think that 8 to 9 years is only for the whatever lease agreement we have already executed. If we consider whatever advance we have given, I think this will be more. You are right.
And this 15 years is the total period, and we do get the capital recovery. The average period is not 15 years.
Okay. Yeah, I understand. So, ma'am, my suggestion is it would help for us to publicize this in our investor outreach, because this is one of our strengths, that we've got a longer weighted average term to of our assets. With comfort on the consistency of revenue stream. So even though this seems to be FY24 seems to be a challenging year, given that we have no mandate and our non-railway business will have to ramp up only over a period of time, but stability of top line and the profitability still should not get affected. So that's just it. This is not the issue.
Yeah, you're right. We have the huge AUM. Last 3 years, our disbursement has been quite high. So we don't see any impact on the financials, and as and when we create a vertical of the non-railway assets, we'll see growth in our revenues and profits.
Finally, ma'am, there was this point at previous call that securitization is an option being considered. Okay. So where are we on this, ma'am, to generate funds for new lending?
I think in last year, in the month of October, we have explored this option. I think the results were not very favorable, but we are constantly monitoring this option, and whenever we'll find a favorable option, definitely we'll explore through this.
Okay. Thank you very much, ma'am. You've been very forthright and responsive. All the best to you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next question comes from the line of Karthik Gada from Multiple Wealth Management. Please go ahead.
We'll be able to take about, I think, 1 or 2 questions more. Yeah. So we can take 2 questions more now.
Thank you for the opportunity again, ma'am. So, somewhat of a subjective question. I don't know what would be how you'll be able to answer. What could be the reason for Ministry of Railways to not resort to ADR? And what I'm trying to understand is, has the Indian Railway become self-sustaining in terms of funding its own capex?
No. The reason is basically a very high gross budgetary support. So this is this 23-24. The support is to the level of 2.4 lakh crore, which is unprecedented and extremely high. So that is the reason for not giving us initial guidance on the ABR. So the reason is only the heavy budgetary support.
Okay. But okay, because what I was thinking is, from MOR's point of view, apart from this budgetary support, to take funding from you is the best thing, right? Because there is no loading of tax, there is no loading of credit costs, the OPEX is very, very minuscule. So the competitiveness of the yields which you would be charging, nobody would be able to match, right? Not even the best of the bank.
No, you're absolutely right. The reason is not due to any cost thing. It is only due to the support they have got in this financial year.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
We can take the last question now, please.
Thank you. Next question comes from the line of Pavan Tarodia, from an individual investor. Please go ahead.
Right. So if I see the other financial companies like PFC and REC, so they have increased profit in this quarter, but your profit is decreased. So you mentioned there is one-time adjustment in this quarter. That is the reason. So should we assume that it will not be there from next quarter, correct?
I think there are 2 reasons for the lower growth in the profit. One is the kind of a level of disbursement we have done in the Q4 and in the full financial year. And second reason is because of the one-time adjustment. Going forward, I think as Madam has already informed that initially we have got the new allocation from the MOR. So going forward, I think we'll have a lower kind of a disbursement in the first quarter itself.
So whatever impact will have because of the lower disbursement, definitely that will get reflected in our Q1 number. But there will be no impact because of this one-time.
Okay. And any reason like why this one-time adjustment or impact is shown under, like it is absorbed in the finance cost. It is not absorbed or mentioned as an exceptional item. So any specific reason for that?
It is a change in the estimate, and initially we have started this disbursement for against the project assets since 15-16. And initially, whenever we done this disbursement, we have raised the resources from many sources, and there was some ambiguity on what basis this WACC need to be calculated. And since last year, our first agreement got executed with the MOR, and quite clarity got emerged. And based on the revised methodology, we have reworked this WACC, and it had got approved from the MOR. Because of the revision in the number, this adjustment was carried out.
Okay. Thanks for your response.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, that was the last question for today. We have reached the end of question and answer session. I would now like to hand the conference over to the management for closing comments.
I just want to thank all the investors and analysts who have participated in this call, and I hope we were able to answer their questions. So still, if there are any queries, information they need from us, they can separately mail to our investors as well, and they can reach out to us. We'll be more than happy to share our and whatever information is required from your side. Thank you so much. Have a good day.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. On behalf of IRFC, that concludes this conference. Thank you for joining us. You may now disconnect your lines.
Thank you.